Welcome to First Page Fridays. I'm April Dávila for Sit Right Here, and today we're going to look at somebody's first page. Could be a novel, could be a short story. I don't really know. I don't even know the genre. I haven't looked at it yet. But we're going to read it the way an agent or publisher would read it, and then I'm going to share with you my thoughts on how I would edit it if I were working with a client. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch these episodes as they come up every Friday. And if you would like to submit your first page, you can do that with the link that's below in the show notes. Submit your page and we'll put it in the queue and we'll get to it as soon as we can. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and shrink myself down here. And I will say too, I have not read this yet. Sometimes I do, especially if it's fantasy, I do my best with pronunciation, so bear with me. All right, in the story he'd tell, the blood would flow down the shore to the sea. Perhaps, depending on the audience, that flow would be rich and thick, fight back against the pull and tide, resistant to the last. Or perhaps it would be weak and thin, rivulets like mold on bread, thin, reaching fingers seeking the solace of being washed away into insignificance in moments, unmoored and forgotten. The reality was patches of sticky sand, darker than the surroundings, where it wasn't pasted over, sweat-bathed bare legs and arms hidden beneath fallen shields or bodies. In a few days, there might be clusters of sandworms thriving on the nourishment if the scavenging birds coming for the bodies didn't scoop them up as a dessert treat. But feeding nature was neither the story of fallen heroes nor the righteous decimation of ignoble half-men. Half-dismembered bodies moaning through the afternoon was not part of anyone's story, and Mercian knew stories. People didn't live or die in the real world. They lived in the stories they told themselves about the real world. They lived in worlds where rivers of blood flowed from the battlefield into the sea. They lived in worlds where heroes vanquished villains or despicable hordes overran valiant defenders. They didn't live in worlds where power-hungry leaders struggled for temporary supremacy until age robbed them of the ability to fight the next vainglorious blowhard with an axe. They didn't live in worlds where sheep followed hollow promises for scraps of glory, where thinking for themselves and being told no was worse than being killed for someone else's dreams. All right, this is a lovely dramatic opening. As a reader, I'm a little unbound. We do get some specific details here, but it's not, so even in the specific details, there's two different versions of it, which I get kind of ties into like people live in the stories that they told themselves. But in terms of telling this story, your reader's going to have a lot easier time finding their way into it if you can be specific and tell them what's happening. Even if you are not, I'm trying to honor your instincts here of like how it's remembered will depend on how it's told, right? I get that. And it's really lovely. I think the number one thing with first pages though is clarity above all else. Like any kind of ambiguity or confusion later in the story is fine because, to a certain extent, because your reader will already be on board and they'll already know who the main character is. They'll already know what's happening. In this, just dropping into this, I have no idea what's happening. And so it's hard to track it. Let's do our best here. Okay, in the story he'd tell, okay, so I'm curious, there's a he. I'm assuming this is our point of view character. The blood would flow down to the shore. Perhaps, depending on the audience, that flow would be rich and thick, fight back against the pull of the tide, pull and tide, resistant to the last. Or perhaps it would be weak and thin, rivulets like mold on bread, thin, reaching fingers seeking the solace of being washed away into insignificance in moments, unmoored and unforgotten. Okay, so right here, we have two different versions of this opening, which is hard for a reader. So which is it, right? Even if it is just the version that he is telling, have him tell us a story. If he could tell it either way, maybe you could revisit it later, tell it how you would tell it. And then maybe later he'd be like, well, I could tell it that way, or I could tell it this other way. But when your reader's first introduction to a story is possibly two different things, it's very hard for the reader to start picturing what's happening. And so it creates a barrier between them and getting into the story. Then you go, the reality was patches of sticky sand. Okay, so now here's a third version, darker than the surroundings where it was. So you do get us into the reality, where it wasn't pasted over, sweat-bathed bare legs and arms hidden beneath fallen shields or bodies. Okay, so we're getting the sense that this is a battle that happened on a shore. In a few days, there might be clusters of sandworms thriving on the nourishment. So now you're jumping us ahead a few days. If the scavenging birds coming for the bodies didn't scoop them up as a dessert treat. That probably wouldn't be a dessert treat. I would just say scoop them up. But feeding nature was neither the story of fallen heroes nor the righteous decimation of ignoble half-men. I mean, the writing on you're clearly an intelligent individual, but you don't need to prove it. Like, I think a lot of, particularly some of the wording here, while it feels like you're going to alienate some people. And I wonder if you could just tell us what's happening. Half dismembered bodies moaning through the afternoon. Okay, so through the afternoon is tricky. When are we? And who, okay, and this he, where does our he go? Is he watching through the afternoon? Like, is he sitting there through the afternoon just watching people moan as they die? I guess he is. Mercian this is Mercian. I'm assuming Mercian is our he. And we know, okay, and he knows stories. So he's some sort of bard or something, right? People didn't live or die in the real world. They lived in the stories they told themselves about the real world. They lived in worlds where rivers of blood flowed from the battlefield into the sea. They lived in worlds where heroes vanquished villains or despicable hordes overran valiant defenders. They didn't live in worlds where power-hungry leaders struggled for temporary supremacy until age robbed them of the ability to fight the next vainglorious blowhard with an axe. I love the wording. It's lovely writing, but I just don't know what the story is. So I wonder if you could save all this. Could you save all this and just tell us, where is Mercian? Who is Mercian? What is happening? If he is walking onto a battlefield right after everyone has been killed, tell us that. The battle ended that morning, or the battle ended near midnight when the moon was high, and the next morning Mercian stepped onto the shores where blood ran thick and sticky. Tell us about the dead bodies, yes, but then tell us, why is he here? What is happening? What is the mission? Is he there to collect a story to tell of this, and he's trying to decide which version to tell? Or is he there for some other reason? Is he our main character? And then as lovely as this all is, I would wait. I would wait on all of this. This is great. But it doesn't really mean anything if I don't know what's happening in the story. And I'm sorry, I know that's not super helpful. I wish I could, without really knowing what the story is, like, is Mercian, I'm assuming it's a he. I'm assuming it's our he that we start with, the story he'd tell. But is he a boy? Is he a man? Is he an old man? Is he a warrior? Is he the one who was leading the charge? He knows stories, so again, I'm leaning towards bard. Why is he there? Yeah, so I think about, for a first page, there are a few important things that need to happen. You need to drop us into a specific time and place, which you have, but you need to tell us when this is. Even if it's just in a fantasy world, it's not like France, post World War II or whatever, but tell us, like, where is this beach, right? Is it a defeated country? Is it, what does the ocean look like? Tell us when, so where and when, who is our main character? Introduce us to them. Tell us as much as you can, even in the sneakiest details, right? If they have like old arthritic hands and they grip a pen to start writing the story, that's different than a young guy who's like, oh, I'm just going to remember all this because I'm young and my brain is healthy. And you can start to give us little hints of who this character is, and then why. Think about what this character's desire is. What do they want in this moment? And if what they want is to figure out how to tell this story, don't hold that back. tell us that from the start. Be like, Mercian knew stories, but he didn't know how to tell this one. He could tell the friendly version where blah, 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 or he could tell the blank, but if you're, which is still not ideal because you're still giving the reader like multiple realities to try to keep track of, but at least you're setting the framework of like the overall reality is you have this main character who's trying to figure out how to tell this story. Ideally put him in there. Maybe he's on the battlefield and someone's like, what are you doing here? Pick up, start doing your job or get out. Like maybe he's there to collect bodies or scavenge for weapons or whatever it is. Ideally some conflict, right? Of you're not supposed to be here, get out. Like, no, I'm here. The king sent me to like, tell the story of the battle. How would you tell it? If you can get some conflict, like active conflict. Dead bodies are past conflict. They're very compelling, but they're not conflict on the page. So put us in a time and place, tell us a little bit about our main character, and then give him a desire, something that he is trying to do or accomplish in this scene so that our readers, your readers, can latch on to that and turn the page to see if he gets it. Because as much as I love the writing right now, I probably wouldn't really make it past the first page because I just don't really know what's happening in this one. It doesn't mean that it's not a good story, and you're clearly a talented writer with a great vocabulary. So please don't give up on this story. Just rewrite the opening here to draw us immediately into a specific scene, and then let all the musings around people living or dying in the real world or stories kind of come once you have introduced us to a character or two and we know where we are and we know what's happening. So I hope that's helpful. And and I just thank you to the author who sent this in. This doesn't work if you guys aren't willing to share your pages. So thank you. And if this was not your page and you'd like to send yours in, please check out the link below. You can send in your page. We'll put it in the queue, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can catch next week's episode. I'll see you then.